I was watching a video last night, somewhat recently, not real recent, but not far enough to call it distant past in any sense of the imagination. A chalk artist in Texas who goes around and makes predominantly geometric designs with chalk in public places, just kind of beautifying it temporarily till the rain comes or too many people walk over it and it fades away. And he travels around and does this and records himself doing it and takes pictures of it and puts them on the internet. And if I understand correctly, he gets some support, people who support his channel doing this. So he has found a way to make some money with his art and all this. But recently, somewhat, not far outside of San Antonio, in one of the smaller cities that are satellites of San Antonio, he was doing this one day. From the clouds, you can clearly see that a storm was coming. And he's making a really pretty design on the sidewalk by this public park, trying to get it done before the rain comes. And I'm not exactly sure why, but evidently someone called the police on him and told them that there was someone making graffiti at the park. Okay, that could have been an honest mistake, or they could have just been jerks. I don't know. It doesn't really even matter. The police showed up, and that's where it should have ended. He's got a tub of chalk. The graffiti statute makes it very clear that they have to be using paint or permanent marker. It's this semi-permanent to permanent defacing of private or public property when you don't have permission to do so. So the officers begin to, hey, you can't be doing this. You have to have a permit. And he says, no, this is not permanent. This is chalk. This is a public place, and I am making art. It's freedom of expression. It's my First Amendment right. You can't require me to have a permit for my First Amendment right. He's correct. And so they arrested him and charged him with graffiti. He had to really almost beg to get them to stop and pick up his materials because they were just going to leave them. But they picked up his stuff and they put it in the back of the car, and they had him in cuffs, and they went through his pockets and got his ID and got all of his stuff out of it, and they drove him from the park to the police station. And one of the two officers takes him out of the car and is leading him into the police station, and the other officer is getting his stuff out of the back of the car to put it in his property. And a supervisor sees him and sees the guy getting walked away, and he walks up, and this is on body cam, that's what I was watching, was the body cam footage, and the supervisor says, what are you bringing him in for? And the officer says, graffiti. And you can see the sergeant kind of look at the materials that the officer has in his hand, and he goes, is it permanent markers or something? Because he knew there wasn't paint cans there. He thought maybe there were some markers mixed in with the thing. And he goes, no, it was chalk. And the officer says, you can't charge him with that. That's not graffiti. It doesn't fit the statute. So here's his supervisor saying, you can't charge him with that. There's no crime. Well, it wasn't coming off. Well, first off, they didn't try to remove it. There was no point where they actually tried to wash any of it off to see if the chalk was permanent. But you could see it was starting to rain as they were driving off anyway. I bet had they gone back, it would have all been gone anyway. So that was a blatant manipulation and lie. And the officer's like, if he's using chalks, it doesn't fit the statute. This is specifically, these chalks are designed to be non-permanent. That's what they are. They're not graffiti. And I remember watching this thinking, I don't even understand how the sergeant's not shutting this guy down, because he goes, well, I'm going to go check, and if that's the case, we'll let him go. And if I was the sergeant, I'd been like, no, you're going to go let him go now. You don't need to go check. I just told you. But he was like, okay, but just, you need to take care of this, because if you detain him when there's no crime, and you know there's no crime and you continue to detain him, you open us up to a lawsuit. It's a violation of the Fourth Amendment. And the guy's like, yeah. So he goes inside and throws the man, still handcuffed, into a holding cell for 30 minutes till evidently the prosecutor said, let him go. You can't arrest him for that. And then he tries to make it look like, well, we're going to do you a favor and not go ahead and charge you this time, as he lets him off like he's, doing that. And there's more to it than that, but it goes on. And oh, lo and behold, he did open his city up to a lawsuit. And that was not good. But I was thinking about how that really does apply to us. See, we graffitied all over God's property. God created us, and he created the people that we're interacting with. And when we sin, we mark up ourselves and people that we wound, people that we damage. We mar the intent of the creation with every sin we make, and it's a permanent marker. It's a big, ugly stain. But somehow, with the way God designed things, the blood of the perfect innocent sacrifice turns our permanent marker into temporary chalk. Now, I'm not saying it's beautiful art, and I'm not saying you have a right to do it. I'm saying that when the rain comes, it's gone, as though it never was. But sometimes people will look at you, sometimes you'll look at yourself, and you'll remember that, and you'll go, graffiti. You'll go, sin. That mark is permanent. I know what you did, and it's a permanent stain. Or the enemy will come and go, hey, you made a mark. You made a mark. You drew something with your life you absolutely were not supposed to do. I'm going to arrest you for graffiti. I'm condemning you for your sin. Jesus isn't like that sergeant. Jesus says, no, that doesn't meet the criteria. If they have put their trust in me, that stain is no longer permanent. It is washed away. It is clean. It is gone. You can't arrest. You cannot hold. You cannot detain for that. That is a violation of their rights as children of the Most High God. And I won't allow it. But we don't have to even let it get that far. Because when those voices come from outside or within, whether it's the enemy, other people, or our own memories in mind, our emotions telling us we're still guilty, when we stand and go, no, I have put my faith and trust in the work of Jesus on that cross, and his blood was spilled to pour over every mark that I have made and wash it clean. It's done. I don't have to try to figure out how to forgive myself. I don't have to worry about if somebody else has forgiven me. All I have to remember is that is gone. It is no longer permanent. I may remember it. Right now, there may be some traces still in the world, but there will be a time when even those are gone. It's done. There is no crime. Not any longer if we have put our faith and trust in Jesus. It's over. We don't have to argue about it. We don't have to try to plead and beg. Don't take me to jail. Don't take me to jail. I was real sorry for it. Just no, you don't have the right. And the difference between this world and that is that when you look the enemy in the eyes and say, in the name of Jesus, because I have put my trust in him, you don't have the right to detain me. He doesn't get to. You don't have to submit to it and then worry about a lawsuit later. You just get to look and say, no, I'm forgiven. God said it. It's done. But that only works if the blood has washed across our permanent marker. Because otherwise, it's a crimson stain. Otherwise, it is way worse than graffiti. It is a permanent blight. So what makes permanent not permanent anymore? The blood of Christ. The love of God. The grace poured out on the cross. It's not about how deep or how dark the mark is. It's all about the power of God moving on our behalf as he spread open his arms in love and willingly laid down his life in sacrifice for us and said, I will pay their fine. I will cover their sin. But that's enough. So we don't have to try to figure out, well, I know God forgives me, but I can't forgive myself. You don't need to forgive yourself, and you don't have the right to forgive yourself. You're trying to collect a debt that's already been paid. Let it go. It's washed away in the rain of the blood that's poured from his body. And do not subject yourself and submit to the tyranny of the enemy, who, if you will allow him, will violate your rights and hold you captive if you forget that there's no longer a crime. Say, no, I put my trust in Jesus and the work that he did, and I am clean before my Lord, and you have no evidence against me. because of the cross. Because of the cross, it is paid in full.